Welcome to another episode of the Longevity Blueprint podcast. Today, I have on as a guest Susan Bratton. She's an intimacy wellness expert and a champion and advocate for all those who desire intimacy and passion their whole long life. She's a best-selling author and publisher of lovemaking techniques, bedroom communication skills, and sexual vitality advice, including Sexual Soulmates, Relationship Magic, Revive Her Drive, Ravish Him, the Steamy Sex Ed Video Collection, Hormone Balancing, The Pump Guide, and Thrust in Time. These are examples of the exciting variety of her 34 books and programs. Susan's an expert in an intimate, no, I'm gonna have to read that line again. Susan is an expert in intimate wellness, sexual regenerative protocols, and ageless sexuality. You can find the Susan Bratton Show on betterlover.com, her more personal post at Susan Bratton on Instagram, and her new sexual vitality supplements, Flow, Boost, Desire, and Drive, which we're going to talk about today at the20store.com. So welcome, Susan Bratton.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for bringing the subject of sexual longevity to your show. I love your show. It was funny. I was just listening to Tracy Chapin on men's hormones, because of course, my area of expertise is both male and female. I like to say people across the gender spectrum, in all honesty. Right. And so it's always good to hear from a doctor what's going on with them. You know, a urologist turned longevity expert, really is what he was. And I thought that one was such a good episode too. I just love your show. So I'm happy to be here with you. It's really my pleasure to talk about sexual biohacking, regenerative therapies. You know, we're going to get into people are constantly surprised at how many tools and treatments are available to fix the problems that occur with aging and our genital system, our urogenital system. And when I talk to people, you know, I have millions of fans and followers, and I'm kind of in some ways a Dear Abby of sexual health for the middle-aged crowd. You know, 35 and up is kind of my sweet spot. And a lot of times I'll ask them, you know, what's holding you back from having the intimacy you want? And they'll write to me and they'll write this long story about, you know, what's hurting them, what their problems are. And I think to myself, oh my goodness, you can fix that in 3 treatments. And people just literally don't know these things are available. And it ends up driving a wedge between them and the intimacy that they want to have. And then when the physical intimacy stops, people become platonic in their relationships. But there's something about, you know, your lust for life really is driven in large part by your libido, your desire for intimate connection. And a little part of you dies when that falls by the wayside. So what I love to do is give people the really simple answers to fix the problems that befall so many of us. And when they realize how easy it is, so many people make the change, and then they're like, thank you so much, oh my gosh, you know, and then I'm a hero.
And they're like, why didn't I do this sooner? Yeah.
They didn't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Right. I totally agree. I think in many cultures, libido is that sign of vitality, right? And that's what it is. That's what we need. And anti-aging medicine extends to our sex life. And so today I want to dive into a lot of what, like you mentioned, many people do not know is available. So we're gonna talk about sexual regenerative medicine. So tell me, how did you get interested in this? You've written so many books on the topic. So how did you even get interested in this?
In my mid-40s, my intimate life with my husband was fading quickly. We were over a decade in relationship, and I noticed my libido had really faltered, and his had not. And that drove a real wedge of frustration between us. He wanted much more intimacy than I wanted. It just wasn't that great for me. And I'd had my child, and I was working, and, you know, life just took over. And then we said, well, let's not get divorced like all our friends. You know, there's 2 things that really create divorce if it's not something, you know, like a fundamental emotional flaw in a partner or something like that. Usually what happens is either sex or money. And I lived in the Silicon Valley, so it wasn't money, it was sex. And all our friends were getting divorced. And I thought, I don't want to be a statistic. I don't want to ruin my daughter's life. And so my husband and I, because we live in Northern California, we were able to go take sexuality workshops, and we learned how to make love, and it completely transformed our relationship. To this day, I've been married almost 30 years to the most wonderful man, and we have an excellent sex life. And I'm pushing 60. I'm 59 now. So I really started out, we created a publishing company to teach people anywhere in the world who wanted to learn how to do what I call transform having sex into making love. And what were the techniques and the tools? And there were really two things. There was sex techniques, actually like the operating system to your body, and bedroom communication skills, because people just don't talk about what they want or know what they need or be able to express themselves or their desires. And then I did that for over a decade and realized there's a third leg of this stool that I need to really address. When I realized that all the techniques and communication skills in the world weren't going to fix it if it hurt.
Right, right.
And that's when I started really getting involved, and this was probably 6 years ago, really getting deep dive into that third leg of the stool, which is intimate function, erectile dysfunction, sexual function, vaginal lubrication, painful sex, loss of sensation, delayed climax, inability to climax, and then on to my hair is thinning and I don't feel sexy, you know, all the hormonal things that you need to know. And then getting into the fact that most sexual lubricants are full of toxins. I always say, if you wouldn't put it in your mouth, you should never put it in your, and let's use the word yoni. The yoni is a really nice word for a woman's urogenital system. And lingam is a very nice word for a man's urogenital system. And they're Sanskrit words, and I think they're really pretty words for the genital system. So lingam and yoni, we'll use that. So that's how I ended up getting into and so aware of, and it really trailed with my kind of hitting 50 and starting to feel the loss of sensation, the lack of lubrication, painful sex, etc. And for a lot of people, they think, oh, I don't have any libido, it's my hormones, or the tissue in my vagina hurts, it's my hormones. There's libido, desire, and arousal. And libido is not just a hormonal issue. There's a lot more to libido than hormones. Hormones help. That's a good foundation. Hormone replacement, bioidentical hormone replacement, both masculine and feminine, like Dr. Chabin was telling us about with testosterone replacement, and of course estrogen, biast, etc. But that's not enough. It's not a magic bullet, and it doesn't fix things. And so then I started saying, okay, what does fix things? And that's where we ended up together today.
We're going to talk about all those. So let's maybe start with hormones, because you said that is a foundation. So we want to lay that foundation first for patients, also because I think hormones make patients feel better, right? So that estrogen is going to bring collagen, or help with collagen production, help a woman not have such vaginal dryness, help her skin look like it has a healthier glow, whatnot. Progesterone is going to make her feel calm, help her sleep better at night. And then testosterone can help with energy and libido and mood, motivation, whatnot. So I think we need to lay that foundation of optimizing the hormones first. I think that testosterone is great for blood flow, period. So it can bring blood flow to the genital area in men and women both. Yeah, and that's a missing piece I find in a lot of my patients. I see couples come in all the time where one of the two has low libido and the other does not. So we need to fix the one of them so that they're more equally yoked there. Or sometimes I see that one patient will come in, not with her spouse. She wants to get fixed, and I'm going to have to edit this because that's not what I meant to say. I was trying to say that both men and women can come in, both having problems, or only one has the problem, but once she gets fixed, now all of a sudden her husband needs to get fixed. What I was trying to say. So how can I phrase that better?
Once you get a wife's libido back on track, then often it turns out that her male-bodied partner could be operating at a functionally higher level as well.
You say it so beautifully. You just say this so well. Okay, I'm gonna try to rephrase it. Or I should say, what also can happen is you bring the female in, you get her fixed, and then she goes home and her husband is just not he's not functioning at her level, right? So one of two scenarios can happen. Maybe I should just not even say that. I don't even know where I should pick up where I left off. Okay, I'll just wing it and say something. So many times I'll find spouses will come into my practice. One libido is fine, the other is not. And so we need to get them both on the same path. So we need to improve one. Other times I'll just have the female come in that couple come in to see me because she's having hot flashes or having some menopausal symptoms. We actually end up improving her libido. She goes home, and now we figure out we have to get her husband on the same page because what was not shared with me is that his sexual function is not up to the performance that now she's wanting. So now we have to see the husband and improve his testosterone and in turn help his libido. But hormones are that foundational piece. So those are the piece of the puzzle that we can get plugged in. But like you said, those don't just fix everything, right? They lay the foundation. So let's maybe talk about female first, and then we can talk about therapies for males. But from a female standpoint, what else can we do? Maybe speaking to the vaginal dryness, the pain with intercourse, what other therapies other than estrogen replacement therapy are available to help women?
Yeah, there are three things. The first one is blood flow. The second one is using low-level laser light therapy.
Yeah.
And the third one is making sure that you're using high-quality, non-toxic lubricants.
Okay.
So let's. First thing I want to do is I want you to imagine a banana. So you're picturing a big yellow, ripe, delicious banana, and I want to compare the masculine and feminine yoni and lingam. So the man, about 50% of the erectile tissue in his banana, so the whole banana itself, the fruit inside that skin is erectile tissue. Pretend that. He has that much, a banana's worth of erectile tissue in his lingam. 50% of it's sticking out of his abdomen, but 50% of it actually goes in and down toward his prostate. And for us female-bodied partners, we have about the stem's worth of our erectile tissue. The stem of the banana is what is sticking out of our body. And all the rest of that same amount of erectile tissue is inside our body. It's actually the clitoral head, the clitoral shaft, the two arms of the clitoris, which are called crura, which drape over the opening to the vaginal canal, and the legs of the clitoris, which are called the vestibular bulbs, and they're on each side of the opening to the vagina underneath our pubic hair. That's called the outer labia or labia majora. Those are the vestibular bulbs under there. And then on the top inside of our vagina, on the top of the cave, if you will, is our urethral sponge, often mistakenly called a G-spot. It's not a spot, it's a long tube of spongy erectile tissue. And on the bottom of our vaginal canal, between the vagina and the rectum, is something called the perineal sponge, and that's erectile tissue. So our vaginal canal, which is a sphincter muscle, and then a tube of tissue that is like an accordion that expands with arousal. All of it is completely surrounded by erectile tissue. So when women are very clitorally focused for their pleasure, they're leaving a lot of pleasure on the table, not becoming what we call fully engorged or having an erection of our own. And as men age, what makes erectile issues difficult for them, for most men, it's a combination of two things. The first is getting blood flow to the genitals, and then holding the blood in the genitals. What happens is that the vascular system gets brittle, gets stiff, and loses its tone, and it can't expand enough to lock in the blood. So he might be able to get an erection, but he can't maintain an erection. Right. That's venous leak is what it's technically called. That's the most common kind of erectile dysfunction. I can't get enough blood to stay in my penis. For women, Their biggest issue that they perceive is dryness. I don't get lubricated the way I used to. But what's actually happening is the vagina doesn't have glands. It has these things called Bartholin's glands, which are actually an antibacterial type of a gland, not a lubricating type of a gland. Our vagina is actually lubricated by the blood plasma seeping fluid down through the layers of the vaginal mucosa and wetting them. And really, what is the issue with lack of lubrication is not estrogen or testosterone or progesterone or even oxytocin or any of those things. It's actually blood flow. Just like as we age, our hormones decline over time. Another production system in our body called nitric oxide also declines in parallel with our hormones as we age. By the time you're 50, you have half the ability to produce nitric oxide you did when you were young. And that includes eating, if you are eating a lot of green vegetables, beetroot, as well as not using a Listerine or an antibacterial mouthwash, and you must have high stomach acid. So if you have low stomach acid, which is also common as we age. If you use antibacterial mouthwash, you don't eat a lot of beets, beetroots, and leafy green vegetables, then each of those is further diminishing your ability to produce nitric oxide, which gets the blood flow to your brain, your heart, and all your parts, including your yoni. So what happens is when we start topping up a woman and a man's nitric oxide, women say to me, my gosh, I'm walking around as moist as I did when I was 20 or 30 years old. Like, I feel like I'm so young again. I feel turned on. Because even though how lubricated we are is not correlated with how aroused we are, in our feeling in our body, it is for a lot of us. We could be really turned on and dry as a bone if we don't have enough nitric oxide, or we could be really, really wet if we have topped up our nitric oxide systems. And then we're like, oh, well, I feel more turned on. Like, it just has that effect on us. So I make a line of supplements, as you mentioned when you introduced me. And the first one is a product called Flow. And that's actually made from citrulline, which comes from watermelon, and nitrates that come from spinach. And I put bitter cherry and N-acetylcysteine and some tannins from pine bark in there. All of them support blood flow. So a lot of women will take this and they'll say, it took like in a week, I was wet again. I feel so much better. And a lot of men say, wow, I don't even have to use Viagra anymore. I can actually achieve and maintain erectile rigidity because I didn't realize that it was just nitric oxide that I was missing.
Right.
So I love something that's so simple and works for so many people. Now, there are men who have cardiovascular disease, or women who have cardiovascular disease, or they have diabetes and they've got neuropathies and they're just not having the same sensation. They're having delayed climax and ability to climax. There are a lot more issues to this. But when you're talking about the big bell curve, the big bell curve is top up your nitric oxide and all of a sudden you may start having more sexual pleasure and function. So that's the first piece of it, is blood flow. And yes, and I want to give you a picture too. Go ahead, please do, Stephanie.
So men and women both can take this supplement that you have, which is basically called Flow. It's a nitric oxide boosting product. So I always like to give or ask about any cautions patients should have using this. So if someone's taking your product and they have Viagra, should they obviously try your product first and not use the Viagra? Can they be used in combination or not?
They stack. They're a stack, a biohacking stack.
Because I know it's a question listeners are going to have.
Yep, exactly.
The only side effect that I know of nitric oxide boosting products is that they could lower blood pressure, right?
Yeah, so if you're already taking a blood pressure medicine, you want to take a small dose and test it. And if you're taking a blood thinner, you want to also talk to your doctor about taking nitric oxide with a blood thinner. That being said, often you can take nitric oxide supplements instead of blood. Like, a lot of people get off of blood pressure medicines. Because they get back their nitric oxide. So working with your doctor, you might be able to get off of a prescription pharmaceutical and onto an all natural organic supplement and achieve the same thing. But doctors aren't trained in supplements. Doctors are trained in pills. So
Mm-hmm.
your doctor's going to give you a pill and not know that he might or she might be able to give you a supplement.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the supplement as helping with blood flow, this is also going to help from a cardiovascular standpoint, right? Because our heart is the primary organ that needs that nitric oxide. So not just for our genitals, this is going to help with blood flow everywhere. So that sounds like a really synergistic blend. Cool.
It
All right.
is. Thank you.
Next point. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I do want to circle back and talk. Maybe I'll just talk about all the supplements here just for a second. The
Sure.
other thing is libido.
Yes.
So I've really studied libido in depth. It is probably one of the strongest areas of my expertise, and I have a broad base of knowledge. I really have studied it so much, and what I've found is that throughout the ages, all of our ancestors wanted to have more libido too. When you feel a little feisty, a little spicy, life is just better. So indigenous peoples around the world have been taking plants and botanicals to improve their desire, their hormone production, their libido, their blood flow, etc. And when I studied it, I looked at both the clinical data as well as ancestral wisdom. And there are really five botanicals that move the needle for the masculine and feminine for people across the gender spectrum with regard to libido. So what I did was I created a daily multivitamin, multi-mineral supplement because, just for example, you might be making enough testosterone, but it's bound to the sex hormone binding globulin, and it's not free for your body to use because you're low in a mineral called boron. It's very simple things that without at least the minimum daily requirements of vitamins and minerals, you're unable to produce your own hormones and your own nitric oxide and a lot of the neurotransmitters that make you feel good, like serotonin, etc.
Right.
So the first thing is ground zero is take a daily vitamin mineral supplement.
Cover
So
those
what I did
bases. Yeah.
was I said, I'll take my, one a day type of situation and put the libido botanical in it so you don't have to take an extra pill, because I want to make sure you're taking your daily vitamin minerals. So I did 3 different libido supplements. It's a 90-day supply. And I have a lot of couples who, what they do is they take the 90-day supply. Each month you take one of the different ones. First month you might take fenugreek, second month you take tribulus, third month you take the Tongkat Ali, and then you start again. And I ask couples when they're doing this to think about, okay, as you're taking this particular supplement, it's going to take about 10 days for the botanical to build up enough in your system. You're going to start to see the effects. What are the effects that you're having with the different botanicals? Because different people's physiology responds to different botanicals in different ways. With one of them, and I would use this as an example. With tribulus, you might notice that you have more fantasies, more little kind of naughty little thoughts, and you might dream of something, have a sexy dream. On Tongkat Ali, you might experience significant improvement in the sensation and pleasure when you achieve climax, because it's actually giving you it's supporting your testosterone. Tongkat Ali is like, it's like hard wood, basically. And remember, women need it as much as men, even though they're outies and we're innies, we have the same amount of erectile tissue. So if your husband has ED, so do you, because you eat the same things and have the same sedentary lifestyle he does, right? So then the third month you would take the fenugreek and you might feel just more flow. The man might experience a more semen volume, which gives him more pleasure with ejaculation, or the feminine might experience just more wetness and feelings of pleasure during lovemaking. Each one of these supplements is going to give you different feelings in your body and different sensations. And it's really fun when a couple does this kind of 90-day experiment and they start talking about what their experience is, because that gets them listening and paying attention to their body and talking about how they feel sexually to each other. Even that goes a long way toward creating more opportunity for connection, because you're putting awareness and intention on your libido. So I really like that particular kind of strategy of it's always getting your vitamins and minerals, you're getting a libido botanical, you're herb cycling your botanicals, you're seeing what works, and it's just a fun kind of experience. So that's one thing. And then I want to give you this guide. It's called Hot to Trot, 38 Sex Facts to Supercharge Your Sex Drive. It's all kinds of health-related medical types of things. You're going to find a lot of the things that I talk about on our episode together today will be captured in hottotrotbook.com. It's a free download, hottotrotbook.com. And I just want to show you that on page 12, there is a wonderful diagram that I had created. It's a custom illustration that I had created. And what this is actually all the erectile tissue of the female genital system. Everything I described earlier, the clitoral head, the clitoral shaft, the crura, the vestibular bulbs, the urethral sponge, the perineal sponge, the Bartholin's glands, so that you can see where they're all located, so that you can begin to notice when they start getting more blood flow and lubrication. And then on page, right in here somewhere. There it is, page 8. I also show you what the penis looks like, and it's so interesting. See how the penis is only half out of the body and it's half in the body? That is very important to understand, that there's a lot of blood flow that needs to happen to the genitals to keep them in good health and good working order. So that's, I think, the most important thing to think is, oh, it's not just hormones for libido. There is actually libido stuff I can do. And there's two other things. One is eat a piece of dark chocolate every day because it's really good for your libido, for your blood flow, for your overall energy and your sexual energy. And maca. If you make a smoothie in the morning or what have you, maca is a very good libido botanical as well, an adaptogen, a libido oriented adaptogen. But it takes a lot of volume of maca. You need about 3 grams of it a day. And so it's not the kind of thing where you'd want to take a handful of pills. It's a better thing if you're making smoothies to throw it in your smoothie.
I tell patients the same thing. Thank you for that book. I will definitely post the link in the show notes so our listeners can get a copy. That looks amazing. I have to go back and ask though, can listeners take all those supplements at once rather than rotate them? Or do you feel like...
Because you'd be getting 300% of your daily allowance of vitamins and minerals.
Got it.
You don't want to take too much vitamin D, etc.
Sure. So you really should rotate them and listen to that strategy. Okay.
Yes. And I do want to say one thing about it. They're methylated. All the B vitamins, it's a B complex, and it's all methylated. It's very important. I have the MTHFR genetic mutation, so I'm very familiar because I'm a bad methylator. So I wanted to make a daily vitamin multi-mineral complex that was a highly available B complex with all your minerals and vitamins plus the libido in it.
Safe to take. Love it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to non-toxic lubrication that is safe. So let's go back. Tell us what our options are.
Yeah, I always think about things in terms of Amazon just because it's super easy. What I would basically say is don't buy anything that has any ingredients that you can't spell. I know you've had guests talking about the Environmental Working Group on your show. I've heard you talk about that before. And what I recommend is avocado oil for intercourse. And what you want is refined, not unrefined, because unrefined will be green and stain your sheets. So refined. There's a brand on Amazon called Hobe, H-O-B-E. It's not organic, but it's health and beauty grade. And it's pretty good, although I'm working on making my own that is organic, and then I'll really be happy. But then another thing that you can get is sweet almond oil. It's not quite as viscous as the avocado oil, but it is organic, and that's on Amazon as well, sweet almond oil. And both of those are very good, as well as any avocado butter or mango butter or things like that that you can find. Hemp butter. Butters are also very good. And what's nice about them is that there's nothing in them but the nut butter or nut oil, which means you can eat them And you don't want to use anything that you wouldn't literally spread on a piece of gluten-free toast or mix up in salad dressing. You want it to be literally edible, because your vaginal mucosa is just as blood innervated as your oral mucosa. So anything that you would put in your mouth, it would need to be non-toxic, same as your vaginal area.
What about coconut oil and olive oil? I have a lot of patients who report using those. What's the
Well,
benefit of avocado oil over some of those?
most avocado oil is doctored or cut with very cheap vegetable oils. So it's quite hard to get a good olive oil that's also clean.
Sure.
And if it is clean, it's usually very green and staining. So I don't recommend it. And coconut oil is a natural antibacterial, and the vaginal biome can be disrupted for many women by coconut oil. You want to be careful about introduction of antibacterial things into the vaginal microbiome, especially if you are oriented toward urinary tract infections or candida overgrowth. So any kind of fungal types of things will feed off of that coconut. So I don't recommend it.
Thank you. Yeah, good points there. I want to talk a little bit about PRP and how it can be used for sexual health. So can you explain what PRP is and how we can use it? Yeah.
Yes, I do want to do that, because one of the things I want to show you is my capillus laser hat. But before I do, before we head toward PRP, there's one more, because that's light therapy, low level laser light therapy. I like to stack with PRP. I want to tell you about something called the V-Fit. Have you seen this device?
No.
Okay, I'm going to describe this for those of you who are listening to the podcast rather than watching, but I'm holding a small white device that goes inside your vagina, and it's a curved shaped device that has three functions. If you go to vfit.com/Susan, you get a special offer, which is nice because I'm kind of a spokesperson for them. And so I wanted a special page where if I drove people there, they'd get a bonus. They get a Revitalize Her $65 vaginal moisturizer with their purchase. So this V-Fit is a red light therapy, and it's vibration and warmth. And when you use this for about 8 weeks, 10 minutes a day, every other day, that's the loading protocol, if you will, the loading dose, right? What it does is it radiates red light, low-level laser light, red light therapy intravaginally up inside your vagina, which stimulates the mitochondrial growth of the vaginal mucosa, which thickens and makes the tissue much more robust and hearty. As we age, even with bioidentical hormone replacement, our vaginal tissue begins to atrophy and get very thin. The flow for blood flow, the nitric oxide for blood flow helps a lot, but if you have painful sex, then I highly recommend the V-Fit, because it's both helpful for incontinence, which so many women struggle with, as well as for rejuvenating the vaginal interior. And it uses red light, and then the vibration is kind of the Kegel, if you will, done for you. And then the warmth recollagenates that tissue and builds that tissue back up. This is about a $500 unit. It lasts for years. You can use it every other day. It feels fantastic. It's not a sex toy in any way, but it is pleasurable as it repairs your internal vaginal system. And what I like about it the most is that I used to only be able to tell people to go get a CO2 laser or an RF treatment, series of treatments, you know, the Mona Lisa, the Vivives, and those cost $1,500 to $3,000. And what they do is damage your vagina, and then your body has to repair it, which makes the tissue thicker. With the V-Fit, there's no damage, there's just repair, and it's pleasurable. You do it at home. You don't have to go into a place and get it done. And I love this device so much. This, to me, is what will keep your vagina nice and tight. What happens, the sad part is that as we age and atrophy, as our skin wrinkles, everything is wrinkling up. Everything's drying up and getting thinner and getting tissueier and, you know, yuck, all that stuff we have to deal with. And what happens is your vagina actually started out to be full of tissue. And as the atrophy ages, the vagina gets thinner and thinner and the tissue gets thinner and thinner. And so your vagina gets bigger and bigger. And then at the same time, if you're with a male-bodied partner, his penis is actually, the tissue is diminishing and it's shrinking. And so he's putting his smaller penis in your bigger vagina, and you're not getting the same good fit you used to get. And the tightness is gone, and it's preventing you from achieving a climax at the intensity and level you used to when you were younger. Not only that, and this is what leads me into PRP, your clitoral tissue, remember the banana, the whole banana worth of erectile tissue in your vaginal system? All of that tissue is shrinking. The banana is literally perishing. It's shrinking. And so you're getting less ability to carry blood flow, and when it's full and plumped up, it has a lot more surface area, which creates more sensation. Your brain registers as pleasure. When that surface area shrivels up, then you feel less pleasure. By the time you're 55, you're feeling about half the sensation you used to feel when you were 35. But you just don't realize it because you've just lost it 1% at a time over year after year after year. So what PRP does is platelet-rich plasma. And essentially you go to get a treatment, and you go to an O shot or a P shot practitioner. O shot for orgasm shot, P shot for Priapus shot. Priapus means erection. It's another word for erection. And what the doctor does is take a vial of your blood and put it into a centrifuge and spin it. And it pulls off the red and white blood cells and leaves this fibrin matrix of healing and growth factors that they use lidocaine, and they put it on your genitals, and then they inject the PRP into the erectile tissue and into the muscular sling that helps hold your bladder up. And they'll also put it in little spots, like a lot of women have episiotomies from birth that are very painful to them. They have fistulas, pain. Other women have had horseback riding or bike riding accidents. So there's a lot of things. One of the issues that I had was the opening to my vagina, the introital sphincter. Right at the bottom, there was always a sensitive area. It must have gotten torn somewhere along the line, and that happens to women a lot. And I had PRP injection in that area, and along with my O shot, the orgasm shot. And I finally repaired, and I finally, between the V-Fit and the O shots, was able to get my vagina back to feeling youthful and having really nice climaxes again and no painful sex. So the O shot and the P shot for men, the P shot put into men's penises regrows the nerves and tissues, but I like to do it with something called Gaines wave treatments. Have you heard of that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So good. I'm glad you've heard of it. Gaines wave is like the V-Fit. It's one of those marvelous new sexual regenerative treatments that makes a huge difference for men's erectile function. It basically uses sound waves to knock the plaque off the penile arteries so the blood can flow in and then lock the blood in for the erection to stay. And it rejuvenates and regenerates the nerves, the blood vessels, and the tissue in the penis. So if you combine Gaines wave treatments with the P shot of healing factors, you're doing a little bit of that micro damage, stimulating new growth, and then accelerating that repair and growth with the PRP. And then using a vacuum erection device. For men, it's three things. It's the PRP with the Gaines wave and something called a vacuum erection device that most people just call it a penis pump. Urologist gives it to you, or your Gaines wave practitioner gives it to you. And you use it every other day. It's like the equivalent to our V-Fit, because he's an outie, so he needs the outer vacuum. Ours is the innie. We need the red light and the vibration and the sound. And he pumps every other day for 13 weeks, and he will have a reestablished, much better erectile response, erectile rigidity, return to pleasure. It reverses atrophy. This is such a good system for men, and the V-Fit with the O-Shot, and of course add flow in so you get your blood flow. These are all just wonder, and use your good lubes. I mean, you will, in a matter of months, see such a transformation of pleasure and vitality just from doing these simple things.
We have had speakers on this podcast earlier talking about the benefits of red light therapy. And, you know, we think of that for mobility purposes, for recovery and repair, whatnot, and even helping with blood flow. But I haven't heard of it used with this application, but it absolutely makes sense. Same thing with PRP. Many times we're using that for hair growth, whatnot, but apparently we can use it for this application as well. So
and that's
very interesting.
I wanted to show you. I've got my capillus here. So capillus, C-A-P-I-L-L-U-S, is a red light. If you're on video with us, you can see under my hat, it's red light shooting out. And if you're not, that's okay. You're listening on your podcast. I can't get this quite straight. What I do is I wear this capillus for 5 minutes every day, and it works fantastic at preventing hair loss and thickening the hair that you have. And then if you want to grow more hair, you get PRP in the scalp. They take that same blood, spin it, get the broth, and then they inject it. And it's amazing that it does not hurt that much. It is crazy. You'd think needles in your head would be like, oh my God. But I did it last November and last February. And I also did the PRP facelift with the vampire facelift with the injectable thickened
vampire
PRP,
facial,
and then the vampire, microderm, punch it into the skin. And I grew so much hair compared to what I had. It was unbelievable. And then I got coronavirus, and I lost all that new growth. So I, next month, am going back to my PRP doctor, Dr. Robin Benson. I'll introduce you to her if you haven't had her on your show yet. She's amazing.
I know who she is, but I would love to have her on the show. Yeah, please, I'll take that
really
intro.
Great. I go to her, and she literally gives me an O-Shot, a Femi Wave, PRP in my hair, PRP, and she does the, builds up my cheeks again to give myself a lift. And she puts it in the nasolabial folds, and she's like an artist with the PRP. And then she does it on the topical. And then I'm going to have exosomes with her to help me recover from coronavirus, because I'm a COVID long hauler. And this will be the only thing I do today is talk to you. I'm still, after 7 months, not working. I work maybe a few hours a week. And I've been, I've lost my hair. I've had horrible skin problems. I've had shortness of breath. I have had extreme exhaustion, chronic fatigue. I am lucky. I was able to do 70 hours of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and that really helped. I had a lot of neuroinflammation, inability to talk, loss of words, confusion, massive chronic fatigue, unable to get up out of bed for months. So the hyperbaric worked well too for me, and that's not something that a lot of people are thinking about with corona, but it definitely is very good. I got coronavirus. We all went into shelter in place. He didn't know he had it, and he was pre-symptomatic. He left our house, went home, and 3 days later got sick as a dog and said, I have a really bad flu. And then like 8 days after he visited our house, my husband and I got super ill, and we bounced back. And then I had a relapse, but my husband did not. So he's basically been taking care of me for 7 months. It's just horrible. But I'm going to have the exosomes next month with Dr. Robin. And I'm going to start again regrowing all the hair that I lost. It was a bitter disappointment for me because I'm vain as heck.
At least you know what works, so you can do that again.
So there you go. More than you wanted to know, probably,
well, I
right?
would have never known because you speak beautifully, and I'm just very thankful. You soar through this interview. You soared through the interview. So thank you for coming on the show today and educating us on how we can really reverse the clock on sexual dysfunction,
Yeah.
help us age even better, and talking about a topic that everyone wants to know about but doesn't know who to talk to about. So thank you so much for spreading your knowledge. You have so many books. I'd encourage all the listeners to check out your website, and we will post all of the links in the show notes to all the products that you mentioned today. So thank you so
Okay.
much for having a passion for this and sharing your knowledge with the world. Thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. You are a delight, and I love your show, and I'm so happy to get to know you and to connect with your audience. So thank you.
Thank you.